I met some of my best friends in college. Honestly, brilliant, incredible, beautiful humans that I probably will love forever. But they are also just the absolute worst. And hear me out. I don't say that just because I'm a mean person. No. Junior year, they found a new hobby when we moved in together. They all rallied around pranking me. Now, before junior year, I really didn't have an issue with pranks at all. The problem was that I was always on the other end of the prank every single time. It just brought them some new level of joy that I never understood. I'd come home and several things were different. I came home once and there was fake spider webs just all over my room. Who does that? Like, who likes spider webs? That doesn't make any sense. One time I came home and I was sleeping on the floor, actually. I was at a camp, came home, ready to sleep in my bed, couldn't get to it because there were tiny little water cups, literally 1,000,000, I counted, all over the floor of my bedroom. Who's gonna clean this stuff up? I don't know what, like the worst thing that they've ever done. Like, it's a tie between when one of them decided to hide in our refrigerator in the hopes of scaring me like a crazy person, and when they photoshopped my face onto someone else's body. I legitimately didn't talk to them for like a week. I don't know. Like, I was furious. I really was. I wonder if I would have liked their pranks better if I was included in on them. It was like, let's get together and prank someone else. Why is it always me? Like, I don't like being left out of things. No one does, really. Like, if you've ever participated in toilet papering a house, you know that it's way more fun to throw toilet paper and paper towels all over someone else's lawn than it is to clean up your own lawn that someone else put a bunch of toilet paper and so many different things on your own lawn by yourself. We don't like not being included. We really don't like the feelings that come with not being included. Feeling alone or lonely or rejected, that's never on our first choice in this life. It's never our first choice. That's likely because God created us to experience a sense of belonging. Brene Brown puts it this way: a deep sense of love and belonging is an irreducible need of all people. We are biologically, cognitively, physically, and spiritually wired to love, to be loved, and to belong. When those needs are not met, we don't function as we were meant to. We break, we fall apart, we numb, we ache. Jesus gets us. He understands you and I as we are right now. He understands the human experience. He knows how we're wired. He knows what our souls crave. He spends his time on this earth making pretty incredible claims with his words and with his actions in response to that craving that we have, humans who desire to feel like they belong. To feel like they belong somewhere. His actions and his words confirm that there are some things that you can count on in this life. When it comes to him, you can count on not being left out. You can count on there are things that are in store for everyone. Jesus said extraordinary things because he's an extraordinary God. He went to extraordinary lengths to make sure that God's heart was clarified. Jesus, who lives this perfect, sinless, blameless life, is executed. A death he didn't deserve, but because he's God, he doesn't stay dead. He's resurrected. And people know he rose from the dead because he went and showed himself to people, to his followers, very much alive. It sounded, the first time I heard it, like The Walking Dead or zombies, but the Bible doesn't even talk about it that way. They don't actually pay too much attention to that. There's yes, it's a miracle, and they talk about it so matter-of-factly. He was dead, he rose again 3 days later. Great. The Bible actually gives more focus and more attention to the conversation that he has with his followers right after he beats sin, right after he beats death. He gathers his followers one more time to give them a final piece of instruction. He calls them into action once more. It's something they were accustomed to. They had experience with receiving teaching and instruction from Jesus like this. But this final time is a call that they would learn would clarify his heart for humanity. In this specific call, he would say, hey, this is a call for every single one of my followers to embrace. And it's so important that you do so because it's a reminder that he can and he will and he does choose to remind us time and time again that we belong with him. Matthew 28. You might be familiar with this passage, is this final conversation where Jesus gives out the Great Commission. And he says that this call is for every single one of my followers. It says this: Jesus came and told his disciples, I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I've given you. And be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. When I read this text, it's clear that there is no space in the universe anywhere where Jesus does not have authority. With all his authority, he offers this final piece of instruction for his followers, not to make their lives more miserable, but really to make them feel like they belong to a greater mission that Jesus had already started. He offers this instruction to remind his followers how their lives could be purposeful as participants in what he was doing, belonging with him. Every one of his followers was invited to belong as a participant in his mission. That's an incredible thing when you think about that. And what's wild is as he offers this instruction, it's clear that this is how everyone else in the world, all of the nations, would hear about how they belonged with him as well. Go and make disciples, baptize them, teach them, go about your lives and make it clear who Jesus is. Make Jesus' name known by how you live your life. Invite them to know the God that you know by your actions and by your words. Clarify for anyone who's curious about this God who he actually is. You know, it's easy to dismiss this call. Many of us have. It's like, oh, you know what? That's not for everyone. It's not for me. It's probably for my Christian friend over there who never goes to any parties and doesn't curse. Or maybe it's for my parents who don't have to worry about being cool. They're a lost cause anyway. Or maybe it's for my pastor. And I mean, that's their job, right? Notice Jesus doesn't give any stipulations about who is called to do this. Notice Jesus also doesn't say it's a suggestion. If you have some time, or maybe if you're interested, would you go and make disciples? No, it's a directive. It's a command for everyone who says they follow this God, who says you belong with him. I know several people who have taken Jesus' call seriously, and the results are major. Some of them you know as well. There is a volunteer leader in our ministry named Sandra Tijan. She leads our junior gals, and although after long work days and long work weeks, every Sunday and every Wednesday, she makes herself available to those junior girls. She shows up so that she can make sure that she has space to answer questions about life and the Bible for them. She's answering questions about homework in the middle of the week, answering phones. There are actually students that have graduated out of her life group that she's still allowing them to have access to her, so that she could actually help them with their lives, remind them about God's faithfulness. She lives so faithfully because she believes God's been faithful to her, and she wants anyone that's around her to know that. More than that, she if you've been in a room with her, you've seen that she worships so wholeheartedly and so authentically, teaching us what it might look like to have a posture of openness, a posture of passion, worshiping this God that we say we love. She makes herself available to answer questions by new believers. I've seen her do it outside of her son's basketball practice. And every Thursday morning, every single week at 6 a.m., she gets up to open the scriptures with people who are literally all over this world. And in that Bible study, I've literally seen people actually meet Jesus. They've given their lives over to Jesus. She's a full-time mom, full-time wife, works full-time, is also adding graduate degrees to her life, and still finds time and space to make sure that she's available to help people understand that they belong with this God. And if you asked her, Sandra, why do you do all of this? She'd tell you, well, because that's what God's will is for me. That's what God's will is for me. That's what he's called me to do, and I want to take that call seriously. I kid you not, there are literally hundreds of students and families who are actually all over this world who know and experience who this God is because she said yes. It's an incredible, incredible blessing to this world, and to me, I'm so grateful to know her. And just so you don't think like, oh, well, that's what you do when you're older, and that's what adults do. I'm going to tell you about two senior guys that you might know. You might have seen them on stage helping lead worship, maybe sharing the announcements with you weekly, or slamming a 9-square ball down in your face. It could have all happened in the same night. I don't know. But Braden Ayers and Isaac Seltzer have been incredibly faithful dudes to take this call seriously. Braden has done so much, leading with FCA, inviting friends to church, actually taking a step out to say, hey, I want to be a part of leading worship. But many of you might not know that Wednesday mornings, he said, I got with some friends and said, I want to provide a safe space for people to be prayed over, to worship together, to ask questions before we go to school on a Wednesday. That's incredible. So many students, whether they're not even part of churches or they go to different churches, are coming together to worship together, to pray together before they go to school, because Braden felt that it was an important thing for them to have a safe space, for teenagers to have a safe space. Isaac, for as long as I've known this guy, he's had an incredibly large heart for his friends. Literally in middle school, he had a heart for his friends. He would invite all of his friends to every single church event that we've ever had, and to camp every single year, because he wanted his friends to experience the place where he felt like he belonged. He wanted them to experience the God that made him feel like he belonged. And because of that, there are guys in our ministry right now who met Jesus because Isaac invited them to come to camp, to come to church. There are big parts of our ministry right now. When I think about these two young men of God growing up in their faith, taking things seriously, I believe that they're actually hearing what God says about them, hearing what God says about their friends, and taking it seriously and actually moving in that direction. That has literally changed the culture of our youth group. It's changing me as a believer in what God can actually do in teenagers' lives. I'm so grateful that they looked at a call like this and took it seriously. I think they take it seriously because of that last verse, the verse that I want to remind you of, verse 20, that says, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. There's a promise that this is actually where you belong because you're with the God you belong with. You don't have to go at this or embrace this call by yourself. Jesus promises to be with you. God promises to be with you. To embrace this call is to say with your words and your life to both yourself and to others around you, no one belongs here more than you. No one belongs with this God here with him more than you. So as you hear the call of God tonight from Matthew 28, what might that actually look like in your life? Is that inviting someone to HSM? Is that talking about how grateful you are that God is doing things in your life with someone? Is that helping someone in need? I don't know, but I pray, friends, at the end of this night that you would have the courage, the boldness to ask God what he might be calling you specifically to do when it comes to what he's asking us in Matthew 28. Thanks so much for listening.